So we are going to start the last two sections of the chapter. So we're closing in on the end of the chapter here. The first one is all about x and y intercepts. So that's what we're going to cover today. Tomorrow we'll talk about parallel and perpendicular lines. We'll review, take a quiz, review a little more, take a test. So we got a lot coming up. I said this earlier, that vacation, you know, that little 5-day break around Thanksgiving is coming. So we got to get some stuff done, okay? So it might feel like we're going kind of quick because, you know, we're trying to get it all in so we can take that little break before finals, all right? So here are your definitions for x and y intercept. Please get these in your notes. The x-intercept is where the line crosses the x-axis. The y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. So the x is the one we know that goes side to side, right? So if I have a point like here, let's say, that is your x-intercept. We write the x-intercept as an ordered pair. So it's the number and 0. So in this case, it would be 4, 0. The y-intercept we've been looking at for a while now. That's the b and y equals mx plus v. Today we're going to practice writing it as an ordered pair, though. So let's say you go up 2. You write this one as 0 because it has an x value of 0. You don't go side to side at all. And then the number is the y. So in this case, it would be 0, 2. All right, and then, of course, if these are points on a line, you would need to draw a line in there. So here's our first equation, 3x plus 2y equals 6. When I'm finding the x-intercept, I'm going to plug in what I know the y value has to be. What does the y value have to be if you're on the x-axis? 0. So we're going to plug a 0 in for the y. Okay? You're finding the ordered pair where y equals 0. So we're plugging 0 in for y, we're solving for x. To find the y-intercept, we'll plug 0 in for x and solve for y. You make the other one 0. If you're finding the x-intercept, the y will always be 0. If you're finding the y-intercept, the x will always be 0. Okay? So 2 times 0 is 0. That's basically gone, right? We have 3x equals 6. So my x-intercept is what? 2. And that is the ordered pair 2, 0. Okay? So start over at the beginning with the original equation. Now you're going to make the x 0 to find the y-intercept. So 3 times 0 equals 2y. The x term basically just goes away. What's my y-intercept? 3. So that's the ordered pair 0, 3. Some people, and this is kind of how I do it, when it's in this standard form, to find the y-intercept, you can basically just cover up the x, right? To find the x-intercept, you basically just cover up the y. It doesn't work when it's in SI form. You can't just like cover it up. But in standard format, works pretty well. So now I have x minus 3y equals 7. I want to find the x-intercept first. So what am I going to do?
Make it a 0.
Make the y equal to 0. So what happens to the whole second term there? Yeah, it's just going to go away, leaving you with x equals 7. It's pretty easy to solve. So that ordered pair would be what? 7, 0. Good. All right, the y-intercept's not going to be as easy. Now I make the x equal to 0.
Would it be negative?
So yeah, now the first term goes away. You have negative 3y equals 7. So what do you get?
0, negative 3? No, oh crap.
You got to solve for y. Yeah, just negative 7/3. Don't overthink it. So 0, negative 7/3.
That's weird.
All right, let's do the x-intercept first. So to do the x-intercept, what am I going to do? Make y equal to 0. When y equals 0, basically just cover up the like plus y part. You have 2/3 x equals 6. How would I get the x by itself? Multiplied by the reciprocal. So 6 times 3/2. So the 6 and the 2 will become a 3, right? And 3 times 3 is 9. So it's 9, 0. Good.
That's weird.
Now the next one's going to be easy because when you plug a 0 in the fraction, the term with the fraction is going to disappear. Leaving you with what?
0.
Y equals 6. It's already solved for you. So 0, 6 is my ordered pair for my y-intercept. X-intercept first. So this one, how do I start? Put the 0 in for the y. So that minus 3y term is going to disappear. I have 2x equals 4. So what's my x-intercept? 2.
2,0.
2,0. Good. Now, this next one is where it gets a little tricky. This is where I was like, hey, you can't just like cover things up. Because you're going to have the whole left side of the equation turn into a 0. Okay? So when you make x equals 0, you have 2 times 0, which is 0. So 0 equals 4 minus 3y. Now you got to solve for the y. So you got to move the 4 first.
So minus 4.
Or you could do it this way. I'll show you the other way too.
Okay. I'm fine with both. Oh.
The way I probably would have done it, actually that way is better, but I probably wouldn't have done it that way. I would have subtracted 4 from both sides and had this guy. Same thing, right? Okay? Thank you. So glad this argument is on my. All right. Questions on that one? No. Those are the tricky ones when it's not in standard form. I don't really like those, but yes, now we're going to look at how to graph these. So here is A on the back of your notes. So we're going to do these the same way. We're going to find the x-intercept. We're going to find the y-intercept. We're going to put the x-intercept on the x-axis. We're going to put the y-intercept on the y-axis. We're going to connect the 2 points. All right. X-intercept. What do I do? Make the y equal to 0. So 3x, that second term with the y in it basically just goes away. I have an x-intercept of what? 4. So my ordered pair is 4, 0. All right, now I'm going to do the same thing, but with the y-intercept. So now I'm going to make the x equal to 0. You can basically cover up the x term. It goes away. I have negative 4y equals 12. Divide by negative 4. What's my y-intercept? Negative 3. Good. I'm going to pause here for you to catch up. If you're already where I'm at, go ahead and graph those 2 points. So make sure your x-intercept is going on your x-axis. Make sure your y-intercept is going on your y-axis. You will have 2 points. Connect those 2 points. Okay? So this is an additional way to graph. You can graph using a table. You can graph using slope-intercept form. You can graph using x and y intercepts, okay? Here's what your graph will look like. You are going right 4, putting a point. On the x-axis, we're at 4, so right 4, don't go up and down at all. For the y-intercept, you go side to side 0, then you go down 3, and then you connect them. Questions? All right, x-intercept first. I make the y equal to 0. So the y term basically disappears. We have 3x equals 7. So 7 over 3 is my x-intercept. So that point is 7/3, comma, 0.
Would that just turn the slope at 7 up?
No. It just turns into a fraction that we're going to graph. Like 2 1/3. Okay? Let's do the y-intercept and then we'll worry about that fraction. So for the y-intercept, now I make the x equal to 0. So the 3x term goes away. So y equals what? -7. So 0, comma, -7. Raise your hand if you have questions on this one. Now we're going to go to graph these. So the x-intercept is kind of tricky. You can see I rewrote it as a mixed number. 7/3 is not easy to find on the graph. So this is where it's helpful to think of it as a mixed number.
Even though you don't like them?
Yeah, I don't like mixed numbers, but when you're graphing, they're kind of necessary. So 2 1/3, you're going to go a little past the 2 on the x-axis, but not to the 3. You know what I mean? So write 2 and a little bit. Put a point. Go back to the 0, 0. Go down 7. Put a point. Connect those two. What are your questions? All right, how should I start this one? X-intercept. How do I find the x-intercept? I make y equal to 0. So you can basically cover up that y term. It is no longer important. I have 1/3 x equals 2. Multiply by the reciprocal. So that's 3. So 2 times 3 is 6. So it's the ordered pair 6, 0. All right, y-intercept. Now what? Make the x equal to 0. So you can basically just get rid of the 1/3 x part. It leaves us with y equals 2. That's my y-intercept. So to graph this, on the x-axis, we are going to go right 6. Don't go up and down at all. Next, we're going to go side to side, nothing, up 2. That's my y-intercept. And then connect those. Questions? We've got one more to get through. And then homework. All right.
Wait, what?
So we're actually this is actually 2 different lines.
Confusion?
We're going to graph 2 lines on here. How do I graph y equals 3? I go up 3 and then what? Yep. Good. So if the y-intercept is 3, right? It crosses the y-axis at 3. So does this have an x-intercept? No. It does not. It only has a y-intercept. Okay? So I am going to put an arrow. Actually, I'm just going to label the lines so we know which one's which, okay? Now, think of it like a separate problem. Now we're going to graph x equals -5. So I am on the x-axis at -5, then what? You just go up and down. Yep. So now we're going through this axis at this point is how I always think of these. Okay?
One of them undefined is 0.
If you're talking slope, yeah, the slope here is 0. The slope here is undefined. All right, I'm going to put the summary right on this slide. Do you remember what these were called? Very good. All right, so tomorrow we are going to finish the chapter. We're going to do parallel and perpendicular lines. Review on Friday. Send you off for the weekend. Review again Monday. Quiz Tuesday. Questions?